As preppers, we all know that we should be stockpiling food. It's one of the most basic things that we do, but it's also really easy to get wrong. For most of us, the question isn't whether or not we have food, it's whether or not that food will actually keep you fed through an emergency. So before you go out and spend any money on any more food, I'm going to show you a few ways to test your pantry. By the end of this video, you'll have a good idea of whether or not what you have is something you can actually use, or if it's just a bunch of food sitting on shelves. And here in a minute, I'll show you something that trips up almost everybody, including folks who have been prepping for years. The first question that you should ask yourself is, does your food plan include breakfast? For most folks, when they start stockpiling food, they think about dinner first, and breakfast sort of gets overlooked. But breakfast is incredibly important, especially if you're going to be doing anything physical, and you want something that's easy and filling that you can make over and over again without a whole lot of fuss. One thing to keep in mind though is that a lot of your common breakfast foods need water and heat before you can do anything with them. Oats are a good example of that. They're cheap and they can store for decades if you do it the right way, but a bag of plain oats isn't a meal until you add some hot water. Then some breakfast foods are a little light on calories unless you add something to them, like peanut butter, powdered milk, or a little sugar. And then there's coffee. I'm half joking here, but going 30 days with no coffee would be its own kind of emergency around my house. But comfort drinks really do matter a lot more than most people realize. Coffee, tea, and hot chocolate are all relatively cheap. They store well, and they can do a whole lot for morale when everything else is totally falling apart. So if your breakfast plan is basically I'll figure it out later, then you don't really have a complete food plan. You've got a dinner plan and not a whole lot of anything else. After that, the next way to test your food plan is to ask yourself, can you make lunch without having to cook every single time? Lunch is a great time to use no-cook food options, and this is something that a lot of people miss. In a real situation, you may not want to fire up a stove 3 times a day. You might be dealing with hot temperatures, have limited fuel reserves, or you might just be worn out and not feel like messing around with cleaning everything up afterwards. So you want to at least have a few meals in your plan that you can throw together cold without having to heat anything up at all. And the good news is that there's a lot of ways that you can do this. Things like crackers and peanut butter, canned meat, and those little tuna and chicken salad packets all work well for that. And then there's meals in a can like soup and chili. And keep in mind that commercially canned food is already cooked, so you can eat it straight out of the can if you have to. It's not going to be the best tasting thing in the world cold, but being able to do that does give you options when you can't cook. And even if you do want to heat those kinds of things up, doing that's going to use way less fuel than like just straight up cooking things like dried beans, rice, or even oats will. Then the third test for a prepper's food plan should be whether dinners are more than just rice. Now, I know that rice is the backbone of most people's food storage, and there's a very good reason for that. It's cheap and stores for a very long time, so I'm not trying to knock it or say that it shouldn't be a part of your plan, because that would be stupid. But rice by itself isn't really a full meal. If your big prepper food plan is I've got a mess ton of rice somewhere, that's not a plan, it's just a crap ton of rice. Then while beans, pasta, and potatoes are useful too, they still need a little bit of support. You're going to want to have some protein in there somewhere. You'll also want to have some fat, because fat means calories, and calories help you stay full. Then you also want some things to add flavor, because eating the same bland thing day in and day out is going to get very old very fast. A few cans of meat, some cooking oil, and a decent stash of seasonings will help turn your food into actual meals. It just takes a little planning ahead, and the planning ahead part really is where a lot of folks get stuck. Knowing that you need protein and fat is one thing, but actually sitting down and turning all of that into 30 days of real meals with the shopping list and amounts that cover everything is completely different, and it's a whole lot of work. So I went ahead and did the hard part for you. It's called the 30-Day Prepper Pantry, and it lays out the exact shopping list, the meals, and how everything fits together using normal grocery store foods that you could pick up today. I'll get into it a little more towards the end of the video, but if you'd rather not piece all of this mess together on your own, that's exactly what that plan is there for, and you can check it out using the links in the description and pinned comment below. And also, just so that there's no confusion, the plan is $37. I'll explain that a little more here at the end. Anyway, let's keep moving down the list. The fourth test for a prepper food plan should be whether it has enough calories or is just based on having enough cans of food. This is what I mentioned at the beginning, and it really trips people up. Most folks don't even really realize that they're doing it. What happens is you open up your pantry and it looks full. You've got cans and other mess stacked up, so you think that you're all set. But canned food, especially vegetables, is a whole lot lighter on calories than people think. While they definitely have their place, many of them are just mostly water, so you could realistically end up with shelves that are full of cans but don't have nearly enough energy in them to keep you going, and you are going to need that energy. If there's a real emergency, there's a very good chance that you'll be working harder than what you normally do. You might be hauling water, clearing debris away from your house, or just not getting enough sleep, and all of that burns calories. You'll want to have a cheap calorie base, protein, and fat. All those work together to keep you going. And a good way to check this is just to flip over a few cans in your pantry and read the labels. Like a can of green beans may only have like 30 or 40 calories, while a serving of rice or oats could have a couple of hundred. Peanut butter gives you nearly 200 calories with just a couple of tablespoons. But knowing where your real energy is coming from can be very helpful when it comes to using your pantry space and money more efficiently. Then the fifth test for a prepper food plan is whether or not you can actually cook your food off grid. Some of your best storage foods need water and heat before you can eat them. That includes rice, pasta, dry beans, and potato flakes. So if the power's out and your stove doesn't work, does your plan account for that? If it doesn't, then your pantry doesn't have meals. It just has a mess ton of ingredients. For most folks, the easiest backup cooking method is going to be a simple butane stove. They're cheap. You can find one for around 25 bucks, and some of them are safe enough to use inside as long as you crack a window and keep a battery-powered carbon monoxide alarm somewhere nearby. One thing to keep in mind, though, about butane is that it doesn't do well in cold temperatures at all. Once the temperature drops down around freezing, specifically 31 degrees or lower, butane won't vaporize, so your stove isn't going to work. So if you're preparing for like winter power outages, you're going to want to have propane as a backup because it handles cold a whole lot better. Then you have other options too. Alcohol stoves and sterno, which is that chafing fuel mess that you've probably seen keeping food warm at weddings or church potlucks, are relatively safe to use inside for heating up cans of soup or boiling small amounts of water. They are a lot slower, but they store well and they're cheap. Then for anything bigger, a propane camp stove or a grill works great, but those should be used outside. And the same thing goes for a rocket stove. The main thing is to have at least one method that you've practiced using along with enough fuel to run it for a month. And safety is very important here. A lot of people get hurt every year doing things like trying to run their grills inside of their home or garage. Carbon monoxide can kill you before you even know that it's there, so outdoor cooking methods have to stay outdoors no matter what. And even if you're using an indoor safe cooking method, be sure that you have plenty of ventilation, keep a battery-operated carbon monoxide alarm wherever it is that you're cooking, and also have a fire extinguisher or fire blanket nearby. And then, of course, don't have anything flammable anywhere near an open flame. After that, the next test is water. Do you have enough to actually prepare your food? And this is another common blind spot, because when people picture food storage, they picture food on shelves. They tend to forget all of the water that they're going to need to turn that into meals. Your cooking water needs are separate from what you'll need for drinking, and both of those are separate from what you'll need for washing your hands, cleaning dishes, and just basic sanitation. Dry foods are probably the biggest problem here, since things like rice and beans need a ton of water to prepare. And then also at the end of it, you're going to have to clean the pots and pans that you use to prepare them. So the more dry foods that you have, the more water that that you're going to need to store. The basic prepper rule is 1 gallon per person per day, but that number really doesn't factor in heavy cooking. So because of that, I try to think of cooking water as a separate amount rather than just like rolled into my overall storage amount. Dedicating a few 7-gallon aquatainers or 5-gallon military water cans specifically to cooking water can be a good way to go about doing this. So planning out your water needs for your food plan is just as important as the food itself. That's another reason why those no-cook meals that we talked about earlier are so important, since they cut down on how much water you use for cooking and also cleaning tasks afterward. Then the 7th test for a prepper pantry is whether you and your family will actually eat it. That sounds simple, but it matters a lot more than people expect, especially when everybody's stressed out. When things get tense, food refusal can turn into a very real problem. Kids will turn up their nose at stuff they don't recognize. Your spouse is going to have their own preferences. And when you've got things like allergies and medical conditions, then you have to account for those. Like if somebody has a peanut allergy or they need gluten-free, then your storage plan has to work around that. So don't store foods that your family can't or won't eat, because really there's no sense in buying a ton of stuff that nobody's going to touch. It's just wasteful. Then the 8th test is rotation. Can you rotate your food before it goes bad? A prepper pantry really should be made up of foods that you can rotate into your normal everyday meals, and this is one of the biggest advantages of using regular grocery store food instead of those specialty survival buckets. You already eat it, so it's easy to use it up and replace it before it ever goes bad on you. That, and you're not going to be shocking your system with new foods and having to waste your stash of toilet paper, and you're also not going to have to find out that your $500 worth of infomercial food tastes like crap. But the trick to food rotation is keeping it organized. Keep your core food together and mark it clearly with the date that you bought it. Use your older stuff first and replace whatever you pull out. If you do that, your food storage is going to stay fresh and it'll basically pay for itself instead of turning into some forgotten stack of random mess that you have really no idea how to use. And it never hurts to do a little self-check. You can do this in your head or write it down, but you want to ask yourself these questions. How many people are you feeding? How many days are you trying to cover? Do you have breakfast, lunches, and dinners all planned out? Do you have enough calories? Do you have some no-cook meals thrown in there? Do you have a way to cook off-grid and plenty of fuel to use with it? Do you have enough water to prepare your food? Does your food plan account for allergies and medical needs? Will your family actually eat what you have stored, and can you rotate it before it expires? If you can answer those questions, you're probably in better shape than most folks, even if you do have a few holes, because if you know about the holes, then you know what you need to do to fix them, and that's a good thing. But if going through that list made you realize that your pantry is a little more random than you thought it was, then that's exactly the problem that I built the 30-day Prepper Pantry to solve. It gives you the exact shopping list, the meal plan, the cooking instructions, and fuel and water calculations so that you'll know exactly what you need without any guessing. Following the plan will give you 30 days of food security for one person, but I also cover how to adjust the plan to help it fit larger households. You get all the downloadable documents that you need to make the plan work off-grid, and then also 3 video modules that walk you through everything for just $37. You can get yours today using the links in the description and pinned comment below. Now, some of you may have seen last week's video where I referred to this as the $150 Prepper Pantry, which I think was probably kind of a little confusing. The cost of the course is $37 from now until midnight on Friday, June 27th. After that, the price will go up, but the $150 that I mentioned is the cost of the food, not how much the course costs. That would be totally unreasonable, and I'm sorry for not being more clear on that. But before you go, here's something that you can do in the next couple of days. Go ahead, pick out one shelf, one cabinet, or a tote that you have your food stored in, and then try to build 7 days of real meals out of what's in there. Not ingredients, actual meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then ask yourself what would happen if you had to try to stretch that out to 30 days. Most people are going to find some gaps when they do this, and really that's a good thing because, like I said earlier, if you know about gaps, then you can fix them now, because if you find them during an emergency, that's when you have some real problems. And while a full pantry is definitely a nice thing to have, a pantry that you've actually planned out is going to be what gets you through a real emergency. So start with 30 days, make sure that what you have works, and then you can build it out from there. Now, if you want to see how to put together a full prepper water plan, then click here. Or if you want to see the best off-grid cooking methods, then click here. Thank y'all for stopping by. Y'all have a good one.